When we think about modern classics across the genres of anime, we think about Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, or even Haikyuu, but when it comes to the rom-com space, it's dominated by Kaguya-sama Love Is War. It's established early on that our two main characters here, Kaguya and Miyuki, are in love with each other, and they know that the other is in love with them. The issue is, neither want to confess out of a sense of personal pride, and so the games begin to get the other to confess their feelings first. The plot seems fairly obvious that by the end of the series, one will eventually give in and confess to the other, or they might confess at the same time, and that will be that. And in a sense, yes, that's exactly what will happen. But the series is a classic example of it's about the journey and not the destination. I mean, how many 12-episode high school romance anime have you seen where they go through the motions, you know, they're in love, they're too scared to make their feelings clear, they tiptoe around the subject of a relationship until episode 12 where the payoff is them holding hands and they live happily ever after. And that is what Love Is War essentially is. But Love Is War is different. You enjoy the journey to the ending that you know is eventually coming. Very often rom-com anime is about getting to the destination, and it becomes frustrating the longer they drag it out. But when I watched this, I found myself wanting for them to never actually confess, or to drag it out longer so the daily antics of the characters can continue on and on and on. Every episode sees the characters in a different situation that plays out for maybe a third of the episode, but they get a good balance of making it episodic but making callbacks to previous episodes or even previous seasons, so the viewer isn't alienated too much by its episodic nature. My favourite example of this is how Miyuki keeps dragging Fujiwara into teaching him a new skill that he's absolutely diabolical at, and by ultra romantic, Fujiwara is traumatised by even the thought of having to teach him again. To be honest with you, I don't even think the romance half of the series exactly reinvents the wheel. Because they aren't a couple yet, they can only do couple-like things like you see in a lot of other anime. For example, the incident where Miyuki visits Kaguya while she's sick springs to mind, where what made it memorable wasn't the romance, but the comedy of the scene. What stuck with me was how Kaguya was while she was sick, the fact it seemed to be some kind of illness that reduced her to a sort of chibi-like character, with a mental age of about 5 years old, and how funny it would be when she came back to her senses and realised that she allowed Miyuki to stay in her bed for the night, and how it would be talked about at school after the fact. For me, the comedy of the series is what really makes it. It takes these sort of typical high school romance situations and puts a Love Is War spin on it to make it feel fresh and unique. And the series' main way of making comedy is its use of exaggeration and unexpected off-the-rails extremities to continuously throw you off. They make situations way more over the top than they need to be. An example of this is when Miyuki and Kaguya want to walk with each other under one umbrella whilst it's raining. They both plan to forget their umbrellas, so they have to share the other one's umbrella. The issue is they both have this plan, and now they're both stood there unable to use their umbrellas that they've actually brought because they've told the other one they forgot it. So to solve this, they get into this ridiculously exaggerated battle of getting the other to admit that they actually have their umbrella with them, and we learn Kaguya actually went to the lengths of looking at the weather report, reinforcing it with prayer, puncturing her family's car tyre so she'd have to walk to and from school that day, and finally checking the bike rack to confirm Miyuki had taken the train to school that day, just for this very occasion to get him to admit that he actually had his umbrella and that he was holding off because he wanted to walk with her under the umbrella because he actually loves her. So do you see the absurdity but hilarity of the situation? And it's like this throughout the rest of the show as well, but it's balanced out by genuine wholesome moments, like when Kaguya gets to see the fireworks. And it's moments like this that give the show some substance rather than it being nothing matters because everything is for funnies kind of show. For me, the characters are the strongest part of the show. They start by having their own defined roles at the beginning. You know, Miyuki is the president who's gained his place not just as the president but in the school through merit, rather than paying to get in like the rest of them. Kaguya is the rich girl who's good at everything and is also the vice president. Fujiwara is the carefree and bubbly secretary in the student council, and Ishigami is the depressed gamer with poor grades, a bit like me, and the student council's treasurer. But over time, these basic things we learn about them evolve as the series progresses. They all have backgrounds and pasts as well as other sides to their personality that come out over the course of time. Miyuki portrays perfection on the outside but is actually deeply insecure when it comes to comparing himself to Kaguya because of how skilled she is, and he doubts himself a lot when it comes to certain things like romance. He's also absolutely god-awful at certain things as we've gone over before, but he is determined not to let other people know, so he works hard to improve his weaknesses like singing and volleyball, because he's worked hard to become the president, and showing his weaknesses would break the perception he's built up with the other students. Kaguya again is seemingly perfect and has a great life as the daughter of one of the richest people in Japan. However, we learn she's basically never received any love from her high-functioning father, and and has basically only ever had her maid Hayasaka as her only friend and more of a sister growing up. She's also equally as bad with romance as Miyuki is, and she has lots of nuances like how she has no grasp of technology like smartphones for example, which is detrimental to her as we see in episode 1 of Ultra Romantic, and how she has a kind heart underneath her exterior, like how she helps Ishigami with his work and romance. Fujiwara seems to be an airhead who always gets in the way of Miyuki and Kaguya in important moments, but then we see the other side of her when she becomes Mother Chica and teaches Miyuki how to sing and play volleyball like I've mentioned, despite the sheer amount of patience it took to make him passable at those things, and that shows she has a compassionate side to her. Or how she loves board games and is part of the board games club, yet is willing to cheat multiple times in order to win. Ishigami is possibly the most relatable character in my opinion. We discover his reason for depression that goes back to an incident in middle school where he did what he believed was right in a situation where a guy was cheating on a girl that he liked, but the blame in everybody's eyes went to him and he was suspended and forced to apologise, which he couldn't bring himself to do until he was saved by Miyuki and offered a place on the student council. He used to be more confident and was the fastest member of the track team before that event, but despite Ishigami's depression he shows a desire to break free from it and joins the cheerleading team to make some new friends and become more sociable. I think a lot of us can relate to wanting to get something back that we've lost that we once had. Even the side characters like Miko Ino, Kashiwagi, Tsubame, Kei, Moeha, to name a few, are all memorable in their own ways, and that's thanks to the incredible writing of this show. And of course, I couldn't go through this video without mentioning a sort of character in his own right who is the narrator in the dub. Whilst he isn't exactly a character, he definitely feels like an extension of the cast of characters, and he definitely adds something to the show. And props to Ian Sinclair because he actually sounds like he's having fun whilst recording it, and it's like he's had a few pints beforehand, but I mean that in the best possible way. Watching the show, it's not hard to see why Love Is War is so popular, and it would be a sad day when it comes to an end, but I think the show will go down in history and will be replayed and discovered for years to come because the writing, the comedy and the romance are all timeless. But what do you think? Do you agree with the hype? And what's your favourite part of the series? And please let me know if you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you for watching.